Good afternoon. So today I'm gonna figuring out some new stuff, or actually, hold on a second, I'm gonna get my notebook for this. So I've been thinking about maybe going back to some kind of like different user interface, or at least in terms of the graph portion. Here, so I have here on the left hand side window kind of like this paint type program, so that I can sketch the new graph type or something like that. So I think the graph type that we currently have, I think it's a little bit too confusing. Like having these multiple different scales, and especially this that like we have let's see, like we have like different maximum levels. Like we have here like it's not showing now because this is kind of like I've been trying out some stuff, so it's a little bit but here we have basically like the maximum level for these user emissions and average emissions, and here we have the maximum level for the carbon tax, here for the carbon costs, and so on. And it might not be obvious that these are the maximum levels, and it might be hard for people to make the connection now that like these numbers then correspond to these maximum levels. And like what I had like very like originally I had to think that I only had like one maximum level here like this, and everything would be scaled based on that. So wait a minute, I don't think I have my chat on. Okay, so okay, I lost my train of thought a little bit. But yeah, thinking about like reverting back to this, to have this only one maximum level, and then everything would scaled based on that. So here, like for example, we have because we have these 4 different like scales. Wait a minute. Yeah, so this would also like scale so that the maximum would be here instead of here, and for the taxes as well, the maximum would be here instead of here, and so on. Something like that. I think the biggest issue with this is that it's problematic with these blue scales here. So when we have the cases where basically the user emissions are smaller than average emissions, then like this carbon dividend portion becomes quite dominating, in a sense that it especially if I have it here as a negative value. Like I at some point I also like, and I think at the current kind of like published version, the carbon dividend thing is kind of like drawn here between those graph. So it could be like if we are gonna keep it drawing it here, and then we have those cases where we have like very small user emissions, then like it's gonna make the graph so that like the negative values are very big, and it's gonna take the half of the size of the graph is gonna go for those negative values. But it might work if because right now the problem with that especially has been that like this stuff here, it gets very cramped. So I don't know if I can recreate it here. Maybe not anymore because it's okay. This goes in a little bit to that direction here now, that like but here, because the kind of like the scale is kind of like flattened, then it doesn't it's not so bad, but it's gonna be worse if I have this like uniform scale for everything. So so yeah, you notice that there's some more, maybe some more. Okay. Some more like yeah, crowding out here. So like a part of this process, if I'm gonna, let's have a new layer here. So if I'm gonna do this change, would be to put the labels maybe in one place. So now we have these labels here in 4 places basically. Well, these are a little bit like here and almost in the same place, but so I think the solution could be that we would have let's see, like here would be some kind of box. So I'm making this kind of box or this kind of background here, so that because when we have the labels on top of it, they would be easier to spot. But this would be, I think this could be like semi-transparent, so you can still notice that there's something. It kind of depends like how much it's important to have these past emissions shown up. So now we would have here, for example, the total emissions, then we would have the net emissions, then we would have the let's see, user emissions and average emissions and so on, and then there's costs and dividend, and let's pick here also the carbon tax here. So and then we could have like numbers here. We could have like so like for example here, like 2080 value. So we would have here like 5 gigatons here and 0 gigatons here and so on. And there could be this kind of arrow that points here, that it goes this kind of like a dashed arrow. And now there's going to be less, this could be a little bit less crowded, this picture, because we are moving these dashed lines here. So that could maybe make it a little bit easier. And then we would have like from here, again there's some number here like 1000 ton and 1.2 tons, and we would draw those arrows to the respectable like numbers. And I'm also thinking about adding like we would still have the table, like it's not really showing in this side now, but we would keep having the table below the graph. But I think what could be an addition here is that like right now, if you hover over, you're gonna see like what's the situation in that year. But I think there could also be a slider down here. Let's see, we could have this slider kind of like line here, and then we have like here, and you can move this around, and this would kind of like it would make this semi-transparent kind of like bar here, and this would show up on the background of those graphs or those curves, and you could then like indicate like the situation in each year. And this year would update now, like if we have here like on 2060, so this would update to 2060, and then it would show the 2060 values. So I wonder if that would be nicer than to have the just we could also keep the hover option in addition to that, but this could be something that we might want to have. Yeah, and one thing that's also kinda important here. Okay, let's do another one of those. What did we use to? Okay. So here, so we would remove these. So is there some transparency setting? Yeah. So we would remove these here. Let's see, what was I thinking? Just like it would bring more space here. Oh yeah, the scaling thing. Like we would have the. Oops. Oh. Like that, so we would have to scale here. I don't know if I can draw a straight line. Okay, that's fine. So here would be kind of like maximum values. So we would have this kind of thing here, this kind of curve or bracket thing, and we would have here as a maximum like 40 gigatons on that scale, and then we would have for the like the emission scale like the user emission or the average emission scale. This would apply for both of those. We would have the 8 tons, and so what else? Yeah, we would have the tax scale, like for example like 700 euros, and then we would have the user cost scale like let's say like 1000 or something like that euros. So this kind of thing, and then we would probably have like a second edition here like halfway through, so we would have the half of these values here, so 20 and 4 and 350 and then like 500. So I think I wonder if this could be easier to understand. Like we already have here like this halving of the scales, but I wonder if it's still like if this old method is, if it's kind of like harder to grasp. And yeah, and then we would have these scale lines here, so we would only have like white scale lines. We wouldn't need to have those different color scale lines, and that kind of like enables us to have more like stuff in the graph. So we have this beam of light here that's in the background, and then we have these kind of like dashed arrows that point to these values. So that's yeah, that's kind of like what I've been thinking, like this kind of like transformation here. Some issues that we have with this one is that we want to make sure that the user will make the connection, for example, that we have this 40 here, or we have the scale here, that this is for those. So because and then we have like these different color systems here like that we show up in this like here, these different shades of orange, for example, so that the user can understand that this orange scale here, or the scale marker, that it kind of like it connects to all three of these. So we would have these three colors here. So I wonder what would make that easier. Would it be that we kind of like have these boxes around these values that are in here? So would that make it easier maybe? Or would we also need to draw lines from here to here? I think that would be a little bit cumbersome. Also, I wonder what if we move these values? I cannot draw here. What if we move here on the right hand side of these scale markers instead? So would that make it easier to connect? But I'm not sure. Yeah. So there's at least like two things that are a little bit kind of like icky here, or a little bit kind of annoying. So the other one is this one that I just mentioned, that can the reader make the connection to the scales? And I think that might be easier if the scales show up kind of like on different stages, if only like the orange scales are visible first, so that there would be this 40 gigatons here, and we wouldn't show any of these other things yet. So that would maybe help there. Something like that. So that's and then when you, or maybe also, I don't know, maybe it would have to have the pink scale as well to start with, because it's it would be kind of like make sense to show also the average emission reduction that is needed to go lower, like But yeah, this is kind of like what I've been planning. I haven't like implemented this yet. But yeah, something like this maybe, and I'm not gonna like. Let's see if I had something else. Yeah, I had some other plans as well. So I'm gonna take out these probably now. So, oops. Okay. So, for example, when we have what's been a little bit kind of like annoying maybe is that if there's a change, for example, you change the maximum number of carbon tax, then it's kind of like difficult to notice that there's change happening because it just changes this scale here. The scale marker changes and the kind of like the shape here stays the same because it's just like it's still this kind of like linear increase. It just like changes the scale, but as the scale kind of changes, so it kind of like it looks visually the same. So that's a little bit annoying that you cannot like really notice like what has changed. So okay, let me go first back to this one. So one thing that could be changed is that like we add here on the right hand side of these markers like what's the change in the maximum value, or we could add here like a column on what's changed and if there's an increase or decrease and how much is there increase and decrease. And one other thing that I've been thinking about is that we could have here, for example, if you like we have, okay, let's keep the starting value the same, but we have here the kind of like the new, or actually we cannot draw it like that. So if you change the carbon tax value, this line like basically that line basically is the same, but we would draw another line here, and this would be like the old line now. So if we had like 400 euros before and we go to like 600, so this change here to 600 the scale, and this would be kind of like the 400 value now here, so it would change the scale. So we could indicate like have this kind of on the, it would be kind of like a more transparent value of this previous, or maybe like a dashed line, and then we would like draw, we would have these arrows go up here to kind of like indicate what has been the direction that we've moved like since the last one. And this would of course like change also the, so like here if we had like a, oh let's see, I'm not actually sure which way this goes. Oh yeah, it would go like, yeah, so then this would be like the new before, and we would go like downwards from the previous value, like we like just changing one value would like give all of the, it would show like which values have changed in the graph based on that change that you just made there. So that would be, I think that would be interesting to do, but like I think the maybe kind of like the danger there or the issue there is that I'm not really sure like how much of an issue it's gonna be, but it's gonna make the graph harder to read because there's gonna be so much new stuff there. There's gonna be like one more line for each thing that has changed, and kind of like and then there's arrows as well. So yeah, so it's but it would also help to understand the connections maybe better, like what affects what, like if here for example you see that like if you change the tax value to maximum tax value, it affects the carbon dividend, and it affects the user carbon cost and the user net cost, but it doesn't affect the user emissions or the average emissions, like by definition, like it would affect, like if there was this kind of like model here that kind of like but it's yeah, but it could also like maybe show up some kind of prompt that like if you make the tax higher, it is more probable that kind of like to keep in the, I don't know, emission targets. And I could maybe use here a little bit better language, like here I have like choose carbon tax settings, but I could have it like choose carbon tax that is enough to stay in these targets or something like that. And here then like user emissions, like choose like emission level that would be probable for you to achieve with this kind of like a carbon tax level. Yeah, and I've also been thinking about like maybe like well, here's kind of like the max value, but we are not. Yeah, I don't know. One possibility also is that you could have like this kind of numbers inside the graph, and then you have like in the bottom you have the explanation that like max value of blah blah blah, something like this. Like that's like another way to add like add more information. Yeah. I think that's about it for that. Yeah, and also like I think in the last video I was talking about this, that is there gonna like a requirement to move more into JavaScript, and because like the more complex stuff you want to do, like the more it kind of like it's kind of like clear that this stuff was built on top of JavaScript, and or is it JavaScript? I'm not sure. So, but and I've already like ordered a book, kind of like that has kind of like this Shiny and JavaScript kind of like integration, and I borrowed from the library kind of like some general purpose JavaScript book, and I'm not like sure yet, at least yet, like how deep I want to get into the JavaScript thing, but it's kind of like maybe nice to like try to get some kind of feel to the language, like in case I have to use it more, and stuff like that, and it's but I don't know. Yeah, yeah, we'll see like how much of that stuff is needed, but okay, but yeah, this was kind of like a kind of little bit of like overview on this kind of quite major changes that I've been thinking about doing, and if you have a kind of like opinion on what's better and what's worse, that's kind of like anything is appreciated. Like I went like still a little bit like a planning process regarding this new system, or I haven't really made decisions on that yet. But okay, but I think I'm gonna end the stream now, and